Moshe Rabbeinu said to us, Atem netzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Hashem Elokeichem. You are all standing today before Hashem. Vasheichem, Sheftechem, your heads, your tribes, Ziknechem, V'sheitrechem, your elders and your officers, Kolish Yisrael, every man of Klal Yisrael, Tavchem, your little ones, Meshechem, your wives, V'gercha, your Geirim, Asher B'kerev Mechnecha, that are in the midst of your camp, Mechoite V'tzecha, Atshayev Meimecha, from your wood choppers until your water drawers. What is the key message over here that Moshe Rabbeinu is portraying to Klal Yisrael? Positioning everyone together like this. Rashi says that Kol Yisrael are a raven zelazeh. And always is a guarantor of a loan. We are each responsible for each other. One yid's mitzvah is everyone's mitzvah. One yid's avera is everyone's detriment. And that's why, even though I was already yoytze my mitzvah of shofar, I can take a shofar and be moitze you with it. If you weren't yoytze your mitzvah of shofar yet, then I'm missing something. Then I can still technically make a bracha and blow for you. If I heard Kiddush, I can still make Kiddush again for you. If you didn't hear Kiddush, to be moitze you. What shaychus do I have to making Kiddush for you? And the answer is, if you, as a yid, did not hear Kiddush yet, I am missing something. And by you satisfying your mitzvah of Kiddush, I am satisfying an aspect of myself that was missing until now. Because we're both yidden. And the same applies if we have the ability to stop another yid from doing an avera, and we don't, and we turn away from that. We're impartial to it, saying it's his avera, it's not mine, why should I concern myself with it? That's not true. His avera is your avera. My avera is your avera. We all have a shaychus to each other. Our success and failure are connected. Now the Chavetz Chaim says, take a closer look at this. How do Chazal present this? They say, Kol Yisrael arevim zelazeh, a guarantor of a loan. Let's try to picture the scene. Shimon comes to my house and he asks for $10,000. He wants a loan of $10,000 for 6 months. And I say to him, my good friend Shimon, as you know, I need some security. So along comes Reuven, and Reuven says, I am willing to sign. If Shimon defaults on the loan, I am his araiv, I am his guarantor, I will pay for it. And I say to Reuven, you're signing an official document. You realize this is not just words. You may just wind up paying $10,000. And Reuven says, yes, I am assuming this responsibility on behalf of my friend Shimon. I want him to have this opportunity. He can make a major investment now. Now, naturally, when Shimon is going to take the $10,000 from him, he's going to invest it, Reuven has a vested interest in making sure that Shimon invests that money in a reasonable way. And if Reuven is about to see Shimon making an investment in something which Reuven really believes is going to be all lost, he will do whatever he can to stop Shimon from making that investment. And Shimon can't just say to Reuven, well, Reuven, what's it to you? It's my investment. And Reuven says, it's everything to me, because if you lose the money, I'll have to pay for it. So, we have to look at our fellow members of Klal Yisrael in exactly the same light. Your next door neighbor is being over an avera. We're not even talking about your own child that you are personally responsible for. It's not that, oh, he's being over an avera. The right thing would be for me to try to explain it to him and try to stop him. After all, Nebuch, what's going to happen to him if he doesn't listen? It's not him, says the Chavetz Chaim. Chazal are telling us it is you. If you are in a position where somehow you can prevent someone else from being over an avera, then you are obligated to do it for your own sake, because we are all a raven, zelazeh. Naturally, we are not held responsible for something which is completely beyond our control, but something which is within our web of influence, something which we could have a bearing on, which we could have an effect on if we would only care, if we would only take interest, and we're going to pay a price if we don't, and that $10,000 is lost. As Chazal say, quotes the Chavetz Chaim, someone who has the power to stop people of his house from being over in avera, or from being influenced from something which they ought not to be exposed to, and he doesn't, the einay meicha, mitzvah al ovin anshe beisai. he too will be trapped and caught on the sin of his household. The Anshe Irai, if he is a person from his position who can yield influence on the people of his town, and he does not stop them, then he's going to be held personally responsible for their chatayim. And thus the Chofetz Chaim concludes, if we have, let us say, the opportunity to uphold organizations or moisbei satire, whether it's within our power of speech, or whether it's through our checkbook, and we fall short of our responsibilities, regardless of what those respective responsibilities may be, then we take the chance of falling into this category of someone who could have and didn't. Now, when Klal Yisrael learned of this concept of arvus, that we're all guarantees for each other, there was much concern. Are we going to be punished for things that we have no control over? And Moshe Rabbeinu clarifies that. And he says in Pasuk Chavches, no, absolutely not. Hanistoros l'Hashem Elokeinu. What is hidden in a person's heart and you have no control over, no idea of, that is l'Hashem Elokeinu. But v'haniglos, what is revealed, lanu elevanenu ad olam. The Chofetz Chaim points out that on the words lanu for us, elevanenu, and for our sons, there are dots. And Chazal tell us what the emphasis of those dots are. Rashi tells us that the din of arvus, the responsibility for one person and another, begins only after they cross the Yarden, and they will makabel the shvua and hargizim and harevel to be aravim zelazeh. But the Chofetz Chaim also stresses that whenever you have dots in the pasuk, the dots are like big arrows instructing us, take a closer look, ilavanenu, for our children. Because ultimately, where this concept is most negated to us, where we are most responsible for, is for the members of our family, for our children. Are we doing enough to seal our houses from alien influences? Are we careful enough to scrutinize what comes through our mailboxes? What do our children take a peek at innocently when we're not home? What newspapers or magazines are we inadvertently bringing into the house for innocent reasons? But there are other parts to those newspapers and magazines which are far from innocent, that can trap an innocent neshama, our innocent neshamas, into a quicksand that they will have to struggle for the rest of their lives to climb out of. Elevanenu, for our sons, we are the guaranteers. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us our families. We are responsible to do our utmost. Sometimes we can do our utmost and you still need to siyat tishmaya, it's not enough. But again, the big question, did we do our utmost? It is brought down in halacha that one should not bring children that are too small to the Beis HaMedrash because they are mevalbel the tefillah. They mix the person up in his davening. A little bit perhaps is the union of chinuch. The child should feel the atmosphere in a Beis Medrash on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but if the child cannot be contained and if he disturbs others, one should be sensitive to that. The Chassam Sofer, however, puts a different spin on this. And he says there's another remes in this halacha. One should not bring little children to the Beis HaMedrash on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur because it is mevalbel your tefillah. It mixes up your tefillah. What do we mean? That it confuses your tefillah. Dr. Chassam Sofer, when you see little children around you, you begin to worry about them. And as parents, we naturally begin to be apprehensive. How am I going to survive another year? How am I going to pay all my bills? How am I going to extend my house and make life comfortable, or in some cases, livable? How am I going to pay for their new shoes? How am I going to pay for their new clothes? How am I going to pay for all of the things that are ever crushing upon me in the efforts to survive with a growing family? And we're mispaled to the Rebbeinu Shalom to help us survive. And of course there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, as a Chassam Sofer, you're missing out on the main focus of Rosh Hashanah. To be mispaled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that your children should grow up Erlich HaYidin. You can forget that. To be mispaled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I, as a parent, I, as a mechanach, should have the proper influence, the proper effect on guiding and directing my children. They should be Erlich HaYidin. That they, in turn, should transmit the Kedusha of Torah to the next generation. That's really what your main focus should be on Rosh Hashanah, to be mispaled for. And if the little children are running around and they're so cute and they're so zis and you're busy giving them their pekalach and so on, that's all beautiful, but there's a danger that it's going to be mevalbel your tefillah, that you'll forget what Rosh Hashanah is really supposed to be all about. And maybe that's what Chazal are alluding to us when they say, Kol is the nois of Shalom Kisuvim Le'mi Rosh Hashanah L'Rosh Hashanah, that all the sustenance, all the mezainos, whatever money is going to fill up your bank account or your wallet the next year, it's all decided on Rosh Hashanah. If you spend too much on the wrong things, you're going to lose out. You won't have enough of your necessities. That's how Rashi understands the message of the Gemara, incidentally, in Maseches Beis. However, like everything else, there are exceptions. There are certain things that if you spend on, you won't lose out. Chutz ne'yatzor Shabbos for Yom Tovim, what you spend on for the honor of Shabbos and Yom Tov, and also with exception to what you spend on for the chinuch of your children. But the Rebbeinu Shalom says, spend money on the chinuch of your children, that's on me. I will pay you back for that. That won't come off your cheshbon. Whether we have enough or not to make ends meet is irrelevant to the amount of money we spend on chinuch. That's what Chazal is saying. It could be the gzeira is you're going to have to struggle, but you're not struggling anymore because of the money you're spending on chinuch. So in a way, the Rebbeinu Shalom is like telling us before Rosh Hashanah, listen to me, here is a window of opportunity. The melech is basada. Be mispalel for your future generations. Be mispalel for your children. Be mispalel that you live up to the expectations and responsibilities as a parent, raising a Yiddish neshama in this alien environment. Don't get sidetracked by the Gashmiistic requests. They're also important. And yes, they're also decided on Rosh Hashanah. Leave that for me. I'll pay for it. You just make sure you do the right things in the house to be mechanech your children properly. Incidentally, the Chassam Sofer says, Kabbalah hu b'yadeinu, that the avos of the person, even those that are already on the Olam hu emes, daven with the person on Rosh Hashanah. So there's a certain connection between the hamshacha of dairis, from father to child on Rosh Hashanah, that transcends even worlds. So the Medrash says, Atem netzavim hayom, you're all standing today. Hayom is the day of Rosh Hashanah. That is the day that the entire world stands before the din. And it's the day that we're supposed to take a good close look at our life. Because Kol Yisrael, we're a member of Klal Yisrael as a whole. Says the Tzar Shalom that every member of Klal Yisrael has something that he has to accomplish. That he has an assignment to master. You, I, if we're here, that means we were sent down to this world for one particular assignment. And today, before Rosh Hashanah, is the day we're supposed to take a good, long, hard look at our life and thoroughly search through our life and ask the question, are we meeting that challenge? The Welt says a Maisa of a very rich Yid who had a very nice wagon driver. And together they were traveling through a town. And they decided to stay there for Shabbos. The rich Yid rented a nice big hotel room, and the wagon driver rented his simple room. And then the rich Yid heard that there was a family in a wagon that was stuck in the mud. So he ran out to them, and he physically threw himself into the mud, and he tried so hard to push them out. The wagon driver, for his part, heard that there are some other wayfarers in the town who could use a place to stay. So he bought some extra chalais, and he decided that in shul he's going to invite all of those people to his house. Now, but things didn't fare very well. The rich person tried to push the wagon out of the mud. He had no idea how. All he accomplished was they were deeper in the mud. And the wagon driver who invited these wayfarers to his house invited them to a very disappointing Shabbos table. They were hoping all week to be invited by some rich person who would have a nice meal that could fill their hungry stomachs for the entire week, and here all the wagon driver had to offer them was some extra chalais. So both of these people thought they were doing a mitzvah, but they were doing exactly the opposite, because they weren't doing their mitzvah. The rich person should have been the one who was Isaac in inviting people to his room to share from his delicious foods. And the wagon driver should have been the one to use his expertise to help the family out of the mud. This is a danger in life, the Tzar Shalom explains. The Yetzer Hara sometimes drives us to do mitzvahs which are easy for us to do or that we want to do, and we avoid doing the ones that we're really supposed to do. Thus the pasuk says, "U'maltem es arlas levavchem," and the pasuk goes on to say, "Asher lo yisa panim v'lo yikach shaychem." You can't bribe the Kadosh Baruch Hu by doing extra mitzvahs and sidestepping the ones which are your real Messiah. So u'maltem es arlas levavchem means cut deep into your heart. Think. What is it that's most difficult for you to do? What is it that somehow throughout your life you feel this is your test, your Nisayan? If you think hard enough, you'll find it. The Gra also says this in the Even Shlema, How does a person know what his netzavim is in life, why he was sent down to this world? If there's a reoccurring situation or challenge that he's constantly bogged down with, the chances are that's it. And instead of running away to do other things, take on what you feel is the challenge of your life, your most difficult challenge, head on. Dr. Tver Shloimeh, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu meant when he said, Atem netzavim hayim kolchem. You're all standing here. And there's a special Kiddusha that represents the unit of Klal Yisrael. But that Kiddusha can be attained only when everyone looks into himself and assumes, what is my position in life? What am I supposed to be doing? And when we do that, we'll be zeicha to the special bracha of the shleimus of Klal Yisrael and the ksiva of the Chasima Taiva.
Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, the mitzvahs are not out of our reach. Ki ha-mitzvah hazayis asher anochi mitzavcha hayom lo nefleisi mimcha. It's not the way Rashi explains it, covered up from you. It's not hidden away beyond your grasp. It's not far away. The next pasuk is Beis Leba Shemayini. It's not in heaven, Lamar, where a person can say as an excuse, Mi yalanu hashemayim v'yigochel lanu v'yashmieni yosef v'nasena. Who'd go up to Shemayim and bring the Torah for us so we can do it? But it's not in Shemayim. It's down here. You don't need anyone to climb up to Shemayim for you. It's not on the other side of the ocean. Well, if they had anyone that can cross the ocean and bring it for me, fine, but what should I do? Not an excuse, because the Torah is not on the other side of the ocean. Rather, it is near you. The Torah was given to you b'ksav and b'alpeh, b'sicha u'b'lvavcha la'saisai. It is within the range of your mouth and your heart to fulfill the Torah. These words, b'sicha u'b'lvavcha la'saisai, is a great chesed, explains the Slonim Rebbe. It's a great present that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. That the order of command is b'sicha, with your mouth, u'b'lvavcha, and then with your heart, la'saisai. Suppose a person comes and he's about to daven. Well, he wakes up. His alarm clock rings at 6. 7 o'clock he's by the minyan. He knows he has to hop the 8 o'clock bus or train to work. And his mind is either still sleeping, already worried about what's he going to have to take care of today. And really the last thing his heart is up to is to put on talis and tefillin right now and to start davening. To say karbonos, to be inspired by Psika de Zimra, to be makabel upon himself the Yom Malchus Shemayim by Birchas Kriyashma, to truly pour his heart out by Shmei Nesrei, to do tshuva by Tachnun. All of this is beyond him. He's still sleeping. His body is just working like a clock. He's caught in a whirlwind of routine. He isn't even thinking. Is this yid ready to daven now? The answer is, the Torah says, don't start bilvavcha. Maybe your life isn't ready yet. Beficha. Start with your mouth. Start saying the words. If the Torah had told us bilvavcha and then beficha lasaisai, we'd be in trouble. Then we would have to say our heart's not in it. We're not ready for it. So how can we start davening? And then before you know it, it's already 8 o'clock and I have to make the train of the bus. What's going to be then? Therefore, the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Rei Chazai, gives us the order of Beficha or B'Vavcha L'Asaisai. You start with your mouth. Say the words. Try to concentrate. I know there's a lot on your mind. Try to put all of that behind you. Try to put it beside you. Think about the words of the Tefillah. And you know something? Do the Beficha right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll give you the present. That the Ubelvavcha, your heart, will follow. And that's the mistake people make. People say, me, what shaykhs do I have to be makar of someone? What shaykhs do I have to truly sing mirrors by a Shabbos table? It's just not me. I have too many other things on my mind. I'm not in the mood. I don't feel well. I'm worried about this. I'm concerned about that. So the Torah says if there was a requirement of leiv beforehand, all of this may have been an excuse. But it's not. The reality is regardless of where every yid is standing, how high or high low, and in the course of life there is inevitably every person relative to his madrega, the ups and the downs. But the fact is, regardless of where you are, it's right there, it's available to you. Why? Because the Torah asks, start with your mouth. Do the mitzvahs, whether you're up to it or not, and the lave will follow. But if you didn't try the fischel, it's not an excuse later to say, well, it just wasn't for me. I just couldn't get into the spirit. The Slonim Esvarim teach, Hemanti ki adaber. I had emunah because I spoke. I didn't sit back and measure myself. Do I believe? Don't I believe? Am I in the mood? Am I inspired? No. First, ki adaber. Now I have a mitzvah. Let me do my best to utter the words clearly, concisely, try to think Pirush HaMilos. And eventually the emunah came. If I would have waited for the emunah first, I would be in trouble. On the pasuk Loi Bashamayim, the Torah is not in heaven, Rashi says, Sheilu Ha'isa Bashamayim, if the Torah was in heaven, Ha'isa Tzarech Lali Sechral V'Lamda, then you would have to climb up and to learn it. So Pashup Pshat is, and then you may have an excuse. How do I get up there? But now that it's down here, you don't have an excuse. Well, the Chidush Yarim says, no, Rashi's telling us something else. A yid who truly has a cheshek, to be medavik himself to the Torah, to have a munah in the Rabban Shalom, to perform his mitzvahs, to be mekar vadis, to do chesed. And his mahalach in life is, even if I have to go up to Shemayim or cross an ocean, I'm prepared to go, I'll try. For him, he's going to find out it's not across the ocean. He's going to find out that the emes is right there in front of him. The opportunity is available. But the person who says, look, it's too far, what's the point? For him, it's takafar. The Lechavitch was known to say, why do people worry so much over whether they're going to be successful? Why don't they understand the bottom line? With the Rabbi Shalom's help, you can fly over skies. And without the Rabbi Shalom's help, you can't even step over the threshold. So in reality, what appears to be very far can become very close. And even what appears to be close can be far. It all depends on, does this person really want? Chaim Volozhin, his brother Zalman Volozhin, was known to be an unbelievable masmid. When he went to the bathroom or to the wash house, they had to hang up huge blankets with bright colors because he had an extremely difficult time diverting his thoughts from Torah, even for a moment. It's about Reb Zalman Volozhin that they say the story. His wife once said to him, why don't you help for the chasana? We're marrying off a child next week. So he said, fine, tell me, what do you want me to do? Now, those days, klezmers, bands used to walk around and they would audition, and you would hire one. She said, there's a bunch of bands standing outside, ready to audition. Pick one that you think is going to do the job of being Sameach Chotzer the Kala by the chasana. So Reb Zalman sat down by his Gemara, and he waited for them to come in. So the first band came in, they played and played, the windows were shaking. And Zalman didn't lift his head out of the Gemara. So the first klezmer band, as they walked out, said to the second one, he's a tough customer to please. He didn't even lift his head to us. So the second band played even louder. The windows were breaking. Reb Zalman still didn't lift his head out of the Gemara. When the third band came in, so they were told, forget it, don't even try. I don't know what he wants. We can't even get him to look at us. And this band played so loud that the windows down the block were shaking. They walked out. The Rebbetzin comes back in. She asks Reb Zalman Volozhin, which band did you pick? He looks up from his Gemara and he says, well, when are they coming to audition? He didn't even know they were there. In an entire 6-block radius, everyone knew they were there, but he didn't know they were there. He was in his Gemara. So they say about Reb Zalman Volozhin that once he had a tremendous chukka to look something up, to learn a certain sefer. And the sefer happened to be laying behind a huge chest that ordinarily would have required 3 people to lift it. So Zalman Volozhin started walking back and forth in the house, and he kept repeating, Loi Bashamayim hi, she'im Bashamayim hi atetzarech lali sachrel. The imi eva liyamu, and if it was on the other side of the ocean, atetzarech lavrachrel. The chazal that Rashi repeats for us in our Sedra. And he kept repeating it again and again, and his love and devotion continued to mount and intensify every time he repeated this chazal. Until suddenly he felt such a courage, such a ruach gevura, he went over to this huge chest, lifted it without anyone helping him, and he took the sefer and he sat down to learn. Now to turn to another aspect of Loi Bashamayim. The Gemara tells us in Masechtas Bava Metzia and Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis. There was a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim in regard to the status of a certain oven, whether or not it was tameh. They debated, they argued, the Chachamim did not agree with Rabbi Eliezer's psak halacha. Rabbi Eliezer pointed to a carob tree and said, if the halacha is like me, this carob tree should be uprooted And the carob tree went, it just came right out of the ground, and it flew for 100 amis, about 200 feet. Some say 400 amis, about 800 feet. And the response of the Chachamim was, we don't paskin halachos based on flying carob trees. The Rebbe Eliezer pointed to a stream of water, and he said, if the halacha is like me, this stream of water will show it. And suddenly the stream stopped, reversed itself, and started flowing in the opposite direction. The Chacham said to him, we don't paskin halachos based on which way a stream flows. So Rebbe Eliezer said, if the halacha is like me, let the walls of the Beis Medrash show it. And the walls of the Beis Medrash started to cave in. They started tilting until Rabbi Yeshua said to the walls, if Talmidei Chacham are arguing with each other, what right do you have to meddle into our affairs? And the walls remained on a tilt. They didn't straighten out because of the honor of Rabbi Eliezer. They didn't completely fall due to the honor of Rabbi Yeshua. Finally, Rabbi Eliezer said, if the halach is like me, min hashemayim yechicha. So a baskel came out, and the baskel said, Ma lechem etzel Rabbi Eliezer. Why are you arguing with Rabbi Eliezer for? Shehalacha k'maiseh b'chol makom. So a heavenly voice rang out and said that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Amad Rabbi Yeshua al Ragla, the Amar, and he said, it still doesn't change anything. Loi b'shemayim. The Torah is not a shemayim. And the Gemara asks, what do you mean? Mai loi b'shemayim. The Amar of Yirmiyah shekfar nitna Torah mehar Sinai. The Torah was given to us in Har Sinai. We don't change halachos by heavenly directive. There was one heavenly message, and that was the whole appearance of the Torah by Har Sinai, and that stays with us until Mashiach comes. Ein onu mashgichim bebaskal, shekvar kesafta b'Har Sinai the Torah, achiram lahatos. And if the majority opinion is against Rabbi Eliezer, then that is the halach. Now Taisus asks for kasha. The Gemara in Yevamah says the reason we paskin like the Beis Hillel as opposed to the Beis Shammai, at least according to one reason, is because a baskel came out and said that the halacha is like the Beis Hillel. So Taisus answers, once Rabbi Eliezer said, Min hashemayim yechicha, you'll see even Shemayim is going to say that I'm right. So it could be argued that the baskel only came out l'chvoida, for the honor of Rabbi Eliezer. But it doesn't necessarily prove that the halacha is like him. But in regard to Beis Hillel, who never even asked for a baskel, so the heavenly voice, in addition to other factors, leads us to conclude that the halacha is like the Beis Hillel. So the Chidah brings in the Sefer Rosh David. He heard from a Moshe Galanti, one of the great Talmidim of the Arizal. The pasuk says, Loi b'shemayim hi, leimar miyal lanu hashemayim. It's Loi b'shemayim hi, it's ein mashgich the baskel. If a person stands here and he tries to prove that he's right, leimar, by saying, who's going to go up to Shemayim? Who's going to do as I can do and mama show all of these ma'asim? Under these circumstances, the baskel is not a factor. However, if the baskel comes on its own, then it is something to reckon with. Rav Yehuda Tzimei Razla, Zechut Tzadik Levracha, was a nephew of Rav Heschel of the Dechayva. Rav Heschel of the Dechayva was referred to in his time as the Sar Beis HaZoyar, a great master of Kabbalah. His nephew, the Razla Rav, was the Rav in town. And it once happened that they brought him a shaila on a behema right before Shabbos. In certain parts of the intestines, they found a needle. And he was in a rush, and he just said, it's kosher. This behema was later sold to people in the town, to who knows how many people in the town. And it's Erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos. And he begins to think, and he said, what did I do? How did I just answer like that it's kosher? And he was very upset about this. Did I thoroughly go through the halacha? And he began to turn pages in the Shulchan Aruch, and he began to wonder, maybe it's not kosher. He had tremendous sorrow. He didn't know what to do. And the repercussions of now reversing the psak would be devastating. He would have to announce in shul that it's treif. All these people would lose their meat for Shabbos, shilas of the kalim, the shilas of taruvais. It would be a nightmare. So he called his shamus, and he was about to tell him, look, I have no choice. It's my fault. I have to take full responsibility. I was too quick to paskin. And as he was about to tell his shamus, run to the shul and announce that I've reversed my psak, no one should eat any meat, he said to himself, let me quickly ask my uncle. So he ran to shul, and Rav Heschel the Dechayva used to daven a very long Shemoneh Esrei. He would daven mincha early, mincha gedai l'erev Shabbos, and he would daven 2-3 hours. He had hoped to catch him before he began Shemoneh Esrei, and he saw Rav Heschel had started the Shemoneh Esrei already. And he was very upset about this. The time was ticking away. And then suddenly Rav Heschel the Dechayva stepped out Shemoneh Esrei, and he turned to him, even before he had a chance to ask. And he said, my dear nephew, don't worry. Yeshirom and Hashemayim, they also paskin that way, that it's kosher. So he writes, my initial reaction was one of immense joy. Baruch Hashem. Shoo. But as soon as he stepped out, he shook his head from side to side and said, that doesn't change anything. Lo b'Shemayim. My responsibility as a Pesach has absolutely nothing to do with what they say in Shemayim the Psak is. My responsibility is based on my understanding of the halacha, and if I was too quick to paskin, and I acted in haste, that's still my fault. And the Radlov could not sleep the entire night. He just kept crying, Rabbeinu Shalom, please help me, I don't know what to do with myself. In the morning, he opened the window for some fresh air, and outside he heard two little children talking. And one of them said, they'll never find the needle. Why? Where did you hide it? You'll never believe where I hid it. I went to my father's butcher store, and I stuck it into one of the intestines that was hanging. Now he had his answer. Obviously, the animal was not treifa. The needle was not there prior to the shechita. It was only inserted after the shechita. And the Rav L'Rav thanked the Kadosh Baruch Hu from the bottom of his heart. His conscience was relieved. He could breathe easier. The emesis is a machlokes in the Gemara when there's a dispute amongst tzaddikim. So there's a concept of elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both are right. How can both be right? So I went to the beautiful mashal. One person is standing to the right of a desk. The other person is standing to the left of the desk. One person swears the desk is to his left. The other swears the desk is to his right. And both are correct. It depends where you're standing. When we are mevayir the halacha down here in this world, based on the halachas of Psak, based on Kabbalah from Rebbeim, based on the Siyata D'Shmaya, and all of the ingredients of bringing out the proper halacha and the right derech. The issue isn't who's right or who's wrong. The issue is what is the right thing for me to do. And therefore, if the opposing opinion brings the raya min Hashemayim, that he's right, it doesn't change anything. He may be right. But what is correct for me? And that's the most important thing a person has to know. Not what's right or what's wrong, but what should you do in your particular matzah. And for this, we don't look to Shemayim. For this, we look to Hadracha from our Rebbeim, from our Rosh Yeshiva. For this, we look to Tefillah down here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu guides us that we say the right thing at the right time. Often you would hear people say, if only I had an Ulam B'Tumen, if only I had an answer in the Shemayim, is this the right thing or the wrong thing, life would be so much easier. I would do it. But my problem in life is I want to do good things, and I'm not even sure if it's good. But that's the whole point. Torah lav b'Shemayim hi. A heavenly sign from time to time is a nice encouragement. But the aside, the basis of policy making in our life is Yegiya in Torah, asking the right questions to the right people, looking to be makabel upon yourself, a derech, a rav, a makam kfuah to establish yourself in. And then you know where you are. You're not asking whether it's right or wrong, and Shemayim both could be right. You want to know if you're to the right or you're to the left, to which direction do I have to go? And for this, Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, don't be flustered. Ki karev alecha hadavar ma'ayid, b'sicha u'b'lvavcha la'asaysa, if you will only try. Technically speaking, one is not permitted to dance on Shabbos. The concern, if he's going to dance, he may start fixing musical instruments. However, the Magen Avraham says that on Simchas Torah we dance anyhow, despite the fact that it's Yom Tif, and whatever Gezeira would apply to Shabbos would also apply to Yom Tif. The reason for the exception, the dancing is a dancing of Simchas Torah, of Simchas Shal Mitzvah. So, of course, the Magen Avraham's heter for Simchas Torah opens up the box for a heter on any Shabbos, if one is dancing purely l'shem mitzvah. But this always was an issue of dispute, particularly between Misnagdim and Hasidim. So if someone once challenged the Chedushei Yavim on this, but l'maisa, why are you allowing this dancing on Shabbos? For the custom was to dance after the Tish. So the Chedushei Yavim argued on the halachic basis, and finally he said, look, the Torah says, Umaltem es orlas levavchem. You have to cut away at the orla of your heart. And do we not know that Mila is Doicha Shabbos? That if you have to do bris Mila on Shabbos, we do it on Shabbos? Umaltem is Arla Slavachem seems to be a command on Klal Yisrael. We have to cut away at the Arla that surrounds our heart, that prevents us from properly feeling the love we should have for Torah and mitzvahs. Yet in this week's Sedra, in Parshas Netzavim, Kapitel Lamed Pasuk Vav, it seems that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises to do it for us. The Pasuk says, Umal Hashem Alekecha es levavcha es levav zarecha, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants. Li'ahava es Hashem Alekecha b'chal levavcha v'chal nafshecha l'man chayecha. So this mitzvah of bris milah on the heart that applies to every yid, who does it? Is it our mitzvah, like the pasuk says, "Umaltem es arlas levavchem," or is the Kadosh Baruch Hu going to do it for us, as the pasuk says, "Umal Hashem Alekecha es levavcha v'es levav zarecha"? I believe that this kasha bothered the Ramban, and that is why he begins his pirush on this pasuk as follows: Zehu she'amru. From here, we have a raya to what the Gemara tells us: Haba l'taher, one who comes to purify himself, Messiah Naisai. Then the Kadosh Baruch Hu helps him. In other words, if you're really sincere about purifying yourself, it doesn't make a difference how low you have fallen. There's a haftacha. Haba l'taher, are you a person that is coming now for purification? There's no limit over here as to where you're coming from, whether you're 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, or 10,000 miles away. But you are coming to be matayir yourself. You're going to have heavenly help. There's a haftacha, there's a promise over here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help you. So in other words, Umaltem es arlas levavchem is a chiyuv on us. We have to make the first move. We're not allowed to say that it's too late for us. We're not allowed to say that we've gone too far. We have to make that attempt at removing the arla. And once we begin, the Kadosh Baruch Hu will take over. You start the Milah process, Umaltem es arlas levavchem, and if you're sincere about that, and you're willing to withstand the initial nisyonos, because no one says it's going to be easy, or that the door will open after the first knock, but if you're persistent enough, then it'll be Umal Hashem Alekecha es levavcha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take over the bris milah. Now the Ramban here in this pasuk teaches us he married the Kiyasai. En hachanan, nizman habriya, there was reshus b'yada adam lasos kirtzayna. If you want, you can be a tzaddik. If you want, you can be a rasha. But take note, cautions the Ramban in this week's Sedra. Aval liyemois hamashiach, tia habchira b'toiv lehem teva. There's going to be a natural inclination only to do good. Like trees are going to grow, like flowers blossoming, like a waterfall rushing downwards, every yid will automatically want to be Makayim, Torah, and Mitzvahs. The argument in Shul will not be that the Baal Tefillah is going too slow. The argument is always going to be he's going too fast. Avaliyim Loisa Mashiach once again says the Ramban, Tia habechira b'toiv lahem teva. It's going to be nature, not second nature, first nature. Lo yisava halev lama she'eina roi. The heart will have no temptation whatsoever to something that is not proper. Lo yechbetz by klal. You won't want it. The Ramban is masbir. Ki achemda v'hataiva is arla l'leiv. The taivas, the temptations that we have, the cravings that we have which are not proper, that is the arla for the heart. And milah on the heart is not to have these taivas. The yoshiv ha'adam bizman hahu la shahaya koidem chetay shel adam harishon. Where b'teva he does what he is supposed to do. That's his nature. And in his ratzon, in his will, there was nothing there that would contradict it. Of course, if you're going to ask if that was the case, then how come he ate from the Eitz Hadas? So the Mefarshim explained Taka. Like the Michtav Miliyahu is masber from sources. Adam Harishon wasn't happy with this situation of a non-Bechira life. He thought that the world would have a greater tafkid if there was a Bechira. But whatever the Yetzer Hara was that convinced him or presented the argument to eat from the Eitz Hadas, whether to him or to Chava first, whatever the Nachash's real taina was, it was an external Yetzer Hara. It wasn't an intrinsic Yetzer Hara, the kind of Yetzer Hara that we have to deal with, a fight from within. It would appear that over here, the Ramban is giving us a second teretz to our kasha. On the one hand, we're told in Maltem, es arlas levavchem, that is until Mashiach comes. where the taiva for Ra is there. We're born with it. The nisyonos are only getting worse. And we have to constantly do bris milah. The chiyuv of umalta misarlut levavchem is on the 8th day, the 9th day, the 10th day, the 10th year, the 11th year, all the way through. No one has any guarantees. Of course, the more you cut away at, the easier it becomes. Ultimately, li'asid lavai, it will be umal Hashem lekechos levavcha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do the complete mitzvah of bris milah, and there will be no more ritzonos for Ra at all. Then the Rambam quotes several psukim from Yirmiyah, from Yecheskel, to the effect that li'asid lavai, the Yetzer Hara simply won't be there. Thus concludes the Rambam. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos, "V'yagia shanim asher tomer ein li behem chayfetz." The pasuk says in Kehelis, days will come when we will say, what is just the point of living like this? Elu yemais HaMashiach she'ein behem lo yischus v'lo chayfetz. For during the days of Mashiach, as good as it's going to be, we're going to think to ourselves, but it's not really a challenge. I mean, we're good because we're naturally good. So there's no schus, there's no chayva. For schus and chayv depends on chayfetz, depends on will. We all have cravings, we all have natural inclinations. Our ability to harness those, to control them, is the basis for our schar, the basis for what makes one person excel over another. And that won't be available for us when Mashiach comes. We won't have the fight then. So again, as good as it's going to be, but in a certain sense we have to chaperai now. Because if you want to make something of yourself, it's only because of the nesyonos. It's a schus to wake up in the morning only when your taiva is to turn over, close the alarm clock, and put the pillow over your head. And if you still wash nagelwasser and get up and come to daven shachris like a mensch, so that's a schus. And the Yisbach Moshe says that the schus of that, the one who wakes up Chiyas HaMesim, even if for other reasons he was not zeicha to wake up Chiyas HaMesim, because it's Mida Keneged Mida. He forced himself to get up because Baruch Hu says, look, despite all the prosecuting evidence, he's going to get up anyhow. But it's only a schus because he had to force himself to get up. If it's a natural thing, you no longer have the schus. And the truth is, even as a person gets older, he begins to lose this opportunity. The Rebbe of Melech said, sometimes people get older in their years, and they begin to say, I must be a tzaddik. I mean, I don't eat the way I used to eat. I used to just dive into my food. Now I simply step into it. I seem to be waking up earlier now in my older years. I don't have the cravings and temptations anymore that I had when I was young. And a person begins to fool himself. He begins to think, I conquered the Yetzer Hara. I'm a tzaddik. I did tshuva. He doesn't realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us nisyonos and tests. And the tests last for a certain duration of time. After a while, the nisyon isn't there anymore. Or it slowly begins to diminish. As long as the person is alive, he still has nisyonos. But don't fool yourself, said the Rebbe of Melech. Because this person may come up to Shemayim and they're going to ask him, why didn't you do tshuva? And he's going to say, tshuva, me, you see, I did tshuva. Don't you see how I acted differently when I turned 65, when I turned 75, 85? And they're going to tell him, no, you didn't act differently. It's just that your Yetzer Hara began to slowly deplete. As a matter of fact, this was part of your Yetzer Hara, to convince you that you're a tzaddik and therefore you're not doing tshuva. So just like when Mashiach is going to come, we'll no longer have the opportunity of fighting the Yetzer Hara. The truth is that within every day of a person's life, the biological time clock also ticks away at the opportunity of fighting off the Yetzer Hara. There's going to come a time you'll wake up because you can't sleep anymore in the morning. There's going to come a time you're not going to eat that extra piece of steak because, give out, you can't even look at it. Now, as long as a person is alive and he's still breathing, he can do tshuva. But you have to remember that the fight is when there's a challenge, when there are opposing forces within a person driving him in different directions. There was a time where America had a certain chashivas for its presidents that excelled. On an individual level, there were people to look up to. Then the great chachamim in American education came and undid it. They decided that this concept of respecting a George Washington or an Abraham Lincoln, particularly, it's not good. It's not good to have someone to look up to. It's not good to have legends about people's honesty. We'll destroy the whole image. We'll rewrite the textbooks. We'll show their chatoim and their aveiros. Now, I'm not saying whether lechatchila one ought to have looked up to them or not. But the concept, the idea that let's take people that represented a sense of respect and let's allow for it to unravel because this is politically correct, shows to a great extent the demise of society. But, having said that, Saif Kol Saif, if you ask the typical child, name me two famous presidents, so he's going to name Washington, he'll name Lincoln, he'll name Roosevelt perhaps. Why? How come he won't name Grover Cleveland or President Harding? So you're going to say, hey, what's Zelfgetin? What did they accomplish? Well, did anyone open up a book and read through their accomplishments, their legislations, the bills that they signed or that they vetoed? The teretz is, the presidents that are famous are the presidents that lived during a time of war. If not for the Civil War, then President Lincoln's picture would not be anywhere. There wouldn't be a Lincoln Monument. There wouldn't be a place called Lincoln Square. If not for the Revolutionary War, there wouldn't be a George Washington Bridge. Because presidents that lived during a time of major crisis, where the country was threatened, and they rose and fought it off, they excel. They naturally become the leaders. It could be if President Polk lived during the Civil War, you would know about him also. But he didn't. Everyone has his mazel. But in a sense, forgive the analogy, please, but this is what the Ramban is saying. When Mashiach comes, there will no longer be any war. So it's going to be difficult to come up with stories of tzaddikim because everyone's going to be a tzaddik. So as great as the bracha is of Umal Hashem Lekechos Levavcha Veslevav Zerecha, you have to understand that the pasuk is also saying that by the time that's going to come, the battle is over. And if you're looking for greatness, if you're looking to become someone, then the time is now, before Mashiach comes. The time is now, when you are alive down here in this world, and you face nisyonos. I mean, we said before that the nisyonos are when you're younger. There are plenty of nisyonos that one has only when he's older. Just different kinds of nisyonos. So as long as a person is alive, the war is there. Temes Arlas Levavchem is the mitzvah that we live with day by day. Umal Hashem Lekechos Levavchos Levav Zerecha is the ultimate promise that reminds us chaperein before it's too late. Umal Hashem Lekechos Levavcha Veslevav Zerecha. S begins with an aleph, Levavcha is a lamed, V'es is a vav, Levav is another lamed, that is the Rashi Tevis of Elul. So it's a renes for the Hisoris Haleiv to do tshuva during the month of El. Now that's a famous Rashi Tevis. Mishnah Berurah brings it. But the Chidon, the Sefer Nachal Kedumin says, just like we dash in the Rashi Tevis of a phrase, we also dash in the Seifei Tevis. Look at the end letters. S, Taf, Levavcha, Chaf, V'es, another Taf, Levav ends with a Vez. Seifei Tevis, Tichtov, to write. Through your Hisoris of Tshuva during the month of Elul, there is a renes here that the more ratzon you have to want to do this bris milah on your heart, then the more you will be zeicha to a kesiva v'chasima taiva. Years ago I took my class to hear a shmooze before Rosh Hashanah from an elder yid who was in his high 90s. And I wondered about whether or not it was the right thing to do. The elderly gentleman was very repetitious. The content perhaps lacked much substance. But surprisingly, it had a very nice effect on those who heard it. And I couldn't really figure out why until someone said, do you hear the way he says the Heilige Tag, the holy days? He mamish shivers when he says it, and he describes what it was like at home before Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You can sort of feel it. And I realized my mistake. I was trying to listen to him. The others were watching him. They got a lot more out of it. This man remembered what it was like before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur almost a century ago. And he was sort of transmitting it to the next generation, to several generations later. Only by looking at his face, simply by the way he said, the Heilige Tag, can you pick it up? Can you catch it? Or even a glimpse of it? The Shnei Rav explains, when a person performs a mitzvah that has a positive effect on his children, when a person performs an aveira that has a negative effect on his children. In turn, when the person does tshuva, that makes it easier for his children as well. Even though this is true the entire years of the Divrei Yechezkel, it's more so during the month of El. After all, the Rashi Tevis of Es Levavcha, your heart, the Es Levav Zarecha, the heart of your children, is El. Because why does the pasuk say Levav Zarecha, the hearts of your children? Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to all of Klal Yisrael until Mashiach comes. That includes everyone. What do you mean, you and your children? Your children are also part of Klal Yisrael. Why doesn't it say in regard to other mitzvahs, you and your children? Because Stam mitzvah means for everybody, you and your children in all generations. So there's a remez over here. The reason the pasuk says Levav Zarecha is to emphasize that when you do the bris milah on your heart, you are also making it easier for your children to do tshuva. Fathers, you are going to be responsible for your children because the level of your umaltem is arlis levavchem is going to directly affect them. Zok the Divrei Yechezkel, being that Saif Kol Saif, the Rashi Tevis of Es Levavcha, the Es Levav Zarecha is Elul. So we see that this inyan of doing tshuva in a way that it should have a positive effect on our children, this inyan comes to light more so during the month of El than any other time of the year. Chodesh El is mukshel lezeh, for a person to do tshuva in such a way that it also brings his children back. This is the month of Ves Levavcha, Ves Levav Zarecha. So that old man is reflecting on what his parents looked like in the month of El. What we have to do is give our children a scene that they can recall what we look like during the month of El. The pasuk commands us, Hakel Sa'am, gather all the people, Ha'anashim, the men, the Hanashim and the women, Za'ataf and the small children, Ze'gecha Shebesherecha, gather them together in the Beis HaMikdash, let them listen to the king read Mishnah Torah, L'man Yishma'u u'Leman Yilmadu v'Yarvos Hashem Alekechem v'Shamu Lasos es Kol Divrei HaTorah Hazayis. Although men, women, and children came, Rashi makes it clear to us that there were some differences as to what each was supposed to accomplish over there. Hu'anashim, the men, they came Lilmoid to learn. The Hanashim, the women, came Lishmaya to hear. V'ataf, what about the small children? The small children were running around, tugging at their mother's dresses, asking their fathers how much longer is it going to take. These small children, what was the purpose of bringing them? V'ataf lamaba, why did they come, asks Rashi. The answer? Loses schar, to reward those who bring them. So perhaps you would think this sounds like a shtickle darchik teres. What do they have to bring the little children for? To reward those who bring them. Well, let's listen to this Gemara in the Masechtas Chagiga. The Gemara tells us, Maisa, the Rabbi Yochanan ben Broike, the Rabbi Elazar ben Chasma, Shahochu, the two of them went to greet their great Rabbi, Rabbi Yeshua, in the city of Pekin. Amalem, so Rabbi Yeshua said to them, Ma chidish hoya bebeis hamikdash hayom. What chidish were you machadish in the Beis HaMikdash today? Amalem, they said, that is, these two Talmidim said to the Rabbi, we're your Talmidim. Umeimecha anu shaisen, we have come to drink from your water. In other words, we haven't come here for us to teach you. We've come all this way for you to teach us. Amalehem, so he said to them, Afal pikein, ef shelu Beis HaMikdash b'lo chidish. It's impossible that you were in the Beis HaMikdash today and there was no chidish over there, no new thing that was expounded upon, which I didn't hear yet. So tell me, I want to know. Shabbos Shoni Haisa. Whose Shabbos was it this week? Who darshaned this week? Asked Rabbi Yeshua. So they answered, Shabbos Shol Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So it was the Shabbos of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Uvemeh Haisa Haggadah Hayan. So tell me some of the Agadah, to some of the Musar that he said. Amrullah. So they said to him, the Parshas Hakel. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah darshaned about the Parsha of Hakel. What did he say about the Parsha of Hakel? So they answered, this is what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said. He said, Hakel esa'am u'anoshim v'anoshim v'ataf. And he asked, Im anoshim ba'im lilmoid, if the men came to learn, and noshim ba'is l'shmoy, and the women to listen, taf lama ba'im. Why did the children come? Why were they brought? And the answer is, as Rashi taught us, Kidei liten schar l'mevi'ehen, to reward those who bring them. What was Rabbi Yeshua's reaction to this? Amalam, he said to them, what? And you wanted to hold this back from me? Margal is toiva hoitze b'yadchem, there was such a beautiful pearl in your hands. Ubikashtem li'avda mimeni, and you wanted for it to be lost from me? If you knew that Belazar ben Azariah is such a moirdige thing, how could you even think of not telling it to me? Why did I have to draw it out of you? And if you think that that was an exciting reaction, this is how the Mechilta presents it. According to the Mechilta, Rabbi Yeshua jumped up, he said, Areini kiben shivim shana. In the Yalkut it says, kiben shmoinim shana. I'm 70 years old or 80 years old, and you should know, I was never zeicha to hear this tremendous chiddush until today. Ashrecha Avram Avinu. How fortunate are you, Avram Avinu? She'elazar ben Azariah yotza mechalasach. That Elazar ben Azariah has come out of you, that he is from your descendants. Ein hadar yosef. This is not a generation of orphans. Should Elazar ben Azariah show if Elazar ben Azariah dwells in this generation? Why was Rabbi Yeshua so excited about this teretz? It's a nice thing. The children are brought to provide a reward for their parents. But why somehow does this seem to be the whole makar of chinuch, the whole reason that Avram Avinu should be proud? The whole basis of a generation not being orphaned is understanding what Elazar ben Azariah said. All he said was that the parents are going to be rewarded for taking the children, even if the children don't understand. It's a nice teretz, it's a nice thought, but ad kedei kach, I was alive 70 years or 80 years and I never had anything like this. The Gemara tells us in Masechtas Chagiga that when Elazar came to a certain pasuk, he cried. What was that pasuk? Shaul HaNavi was desperate. He was not getting an answer from the Urim the Tumim. He was not getting an answer from the Nevi'im. And he had to know what was going to happen. What was he to do? So Beles Breira, he went and he found one last witch, a Kishav Macha. The witches, for the most part, were destroyed by Shaul. But here, in desperation, he found one that had remained in hiding. He disguised himself. And he pleaded with her to bring down the neshama of Shmuel HaNavi so he could ask Shmuel what is going to happen. And when Shmuel HaNavi was summoned, he was frightened. Shmuel HaNavi said, perhaps I'm going to be rejudged now. Even though Shmuel HaNavi was already in Olam Haba, he was frightened. And he ran to Moshe Rabbeinu so that Moshe Rabbeinu should come along with him and defend him in case he is being rejudged. So the Gemara says he cried. The Medrash explains more. This should frighten us. Ma Shmuel Mada Shmuel. Shekasav, where the pasuk says about Shmuel HaNavi. Vayeda kol Yisrael midan vad Beersheva. Ki neman Shmuel HaNavi Lashem. And despite the greatness of Shmuel, because he thought that they were going to rejudge him, he was frightened. So anu alachas kama v'kama, how much more so should we be concerned? The Meshech Chachma has a very interesting beer on this medrash. Shmuel HaNavi had gone through his din v'cheshbon. So what does that mean? He's going to be rejudged. On what basis should he be rejudged? The first trial was declared a mistrial. There was a mistake. One of the jurors was found to be biased. I mean, all of that is not shaykh the olam ha'emes. Every din v'cheshbon is emes li'amitai. Everything is open and clear in front of them. Nothing is vague, nothing is disguised, nothing can be misleading. No evidence is hidden, no source is suppressed. So what does this mean, Shmuel thought is going to be rejudged? He went through the first judgment and it came out clear. Shmuel was shakol k'mosho kahari, no chait. He couldn't have sinned in Olam Haba afterwards. What was the basis for his concern? It doesn't work that way in Shemayim. Oh, wait a second, we forgot something, come back. They don't forget. Dr. Meshech Chachma, that a person is rejudged every single year. And a Shama is rejudged every single year. Atem netzavim hayom kulchem. Even the Shomis in Shemayim, Sifrei Chaim v'Sifrei Mesim enochem lefanecha. The Eibishter judges the Nesim as well. How could the Eibishter judge the Nesim? They no longer have a bchira. They no longer have a free choice of sinning. The teretz is that a person is judged on the basis of what his children do, on the actions of his children. However, the Meshech Chacham explains, if a person did his best to be mechanech his child properly, did his best to create the right environment, did whatever he could for the child to grow up in a garden that is kosher, but then, as the child grew up, alien influences stepped in, or the Sahara of the child was so great that somehow his efforts appear fruitless, and the child goes out the tarvis ra. There is no complaint against the father. The father is not punished in any way for this. After all, whether it's his father or his mother, they did whatever they could. Adarabba. They probably got their Gehenna down here on this world already, and they'll go straight to Olam Haba. It's only if there is a taina on the way the father or mother was mechanech their child, if they allowed for a hefker, if they exposed their children for their own personal pleasure or lack of a restrictive way of life to things that they ought not to have been exposed to, and as a result they were yatzul tarvis ra. So this is a big problem for the parents, even in Olam Haba. What did you do? And every time the child sins, that's a taina again in Shemayim. But it's your fault. You started this. Now, if we can recall a little bit from Navi, Sefer Shmuel begins with the birth of Shmuel, and right away we are taught that Eli HaKayin was a great tzaddik, the Kayin Gadol, but he was faulted for not being mechanech his children properly. And there was a lot of corruption going on in the Beis HaMikdash. As a matter of fact, Shmuel Hanavi's first nevuah, his very first nevuah, his very first exposure to nevuah was that he should warn Eli that he's going to suffer terrible consequences for this, that the Aron is going to be captured, that his children are going to die young for generations afterwards. And Shmuel didn't want to tell Eli what the nevuah was, and Eli warned him, if you don't tell me, then the curse will take effect upon you. So Shmuel had to tell him. And Eli, being the tzaddik that he was makabel at the Ahava, and even though he was told that karbonis will be ineffective as a kapara for his children, for that was the source of their sin, taking advantage of the power of ruling the karbonis, however, they would attain some level of kapara or shmira through other inyanim, through limud haTorah, through tefillah, through tzedakah. Now we know killas chacham, a klala of a chacham, even if it's ala tanai, even if it was conditional and the conditions were not met, still it has some ramifications. How did it affect Shmuel? The pasuk tells us that Shmuel's children did not travel in his way. They weren't bad. However, Shmuel, and this was to offset the negative influence on the children of Eli, Shmuel was Meiser Nevish himself throughout his lifetime, to travel from town to town and to help out Yidden and to judge them, and he never took anything. He slept in a tent. He brought along his own pot. And his children already had offices, and they didn't do anything wrong. But it wasn't their father. And obviously this was a concern to Shmuel Hanavi. However, it didn't affect him one iota in his din v'cheshbon. Why? Because, look, Shmuel did whatever he could to be mechanech his children properly. He was Meiser Nevish himself for the generation, for the dar. All HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks is that we try. However, when Shmuel Hanavi was being summoned, explains the Meshech Chachma, he was very frightened, because he said, maybe in the course of time that has elapsed since my din v'cheshbon until now, my children continued to do things that were not proper, and perhaps they committed a sin now which is a result of my lack of proper chinuch, even though that was not the case. But this was Shmuel's concern, and therefore there would be an issue of him being rejudged. Now look what happened, even though it's already 1 year, 2 years, 5 years after your petira, and you're basking in Olam Haba, but your children have sinned, and their sin is as a result of your chait. Maybe it's you who did something wrong in terms of your chinuch. And this was Shmuel's concern. So who did Shmuel run to? He ran to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did he run to Moshe Rabbeinu? The Medrash says, even though we could just repeat the words, we don't know what this means. But the Medrash says that there were 3 instances where Moshe Rabbeinu disputed what he heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed with Moshe Rabbeinu. So what that means is Moshe Rabbeinu misunderstood it, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu explained to him, no, this is exactly what I meant. One of the things was, Kisha Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, that children can cause their fathers to be punished as a result of their sin. Omar Moshe, so Moshe said, Rabbeinu Shalom, Kama Rishayim, Halidu Tzadikim. How many Rishayim are there that were born to great Tzadikim? The Chei Noshi, Tzadikim like it? Is this nice Tzadikim should suffer for what their sons did? Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'madatani chayecha on your life, Shani mevatel devarai u'mekayim devarecha. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Loi yomsu avos albana. V'chayecha on your life, Shani kaisim l'shmecha. I will write this with your credit. You're the one that presented this, that affirmed this halacha. There is no child that can cause his father to be punished. So Chazal explained that the clarification was that if the father sinned and the child continues that sin, then the child will cause his father to be punished even more severely. But if the sin of the child has nothing to do with the father, then the father bears absolutely no responsibility for what the child did. So Shmuel was concerned. How could I be summoned now? Perhaps I'm being rejudged. How could I be rejudged? I came through clear. Elamaya must be, maybe one of my children did something wrong. But I know that I did whatever I could to be mechanech them. Therefore, he ran to ask Moshe Rabbeinu to come along with him, because Moshe Rabbeinu represents this idea. He is the one that demanded that this should be clearly spelled out, that if the father has nothing to do with the chait of the son, the father should not be punished for that. So one of the most important defenses that a person needs for the ultimate din v'cheshbon is to say, Rabbeinu Shalom, I did my best with my children. I did my best. How can he substantiate that he did his best? And there's only one answer. I tried to bring him to the right places. Because there is nothing that affects the way a child thinks. There is nothing that determines the direction of a child more so than environment. And very often the environment is not in our control. Rahman al-Islam, the Eibishter Upbeat, and one bad friend can destroy the best of children, and one good friend can rectify a child that is on a course to disaster. You can completely turn him around. So what can a person do? The teretz is, what you can do is realize that you have to try your best, and that's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. What if a person tries his best and the child simply is not picking up? What if the person tries his best and the child is just not interested in learning? What if the person tries his best and it's just not going? He isn't getting the results that he wants? And he is so dismayed, he says, oy vey, and now I'm going to be personally responsible for this? So the teretz is the mitzvah of hakel. Anoshim, what's your responsibility? To learn. You, father, you make sure you learn. You create a role model. Let the child see someone who comes home and is Meisenevish himself to run to a shiur, to sit down with a chavrusa, to learn with his child. That's what you can do on your part. Noshim l'shmaya. Let women listen. Listen to that Geshmaka story the child brings home, that his teacher, that her Mora told her. And and about the arts and crafts, about Kriyas Yamsuf, about the scales before Rosh Hashanah. As far as the taf is concerned, you have to be able to say to the Rebbeinu Shalom one thing. I brought them. Rebbeinu Shalom, look what I did. When the child was small, I brought him to the Beis HaMikdash. You know how hard it was to take him to the Beis HaMikdash? To travel all that way on a camel or a donkey? From way up north in Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim? From down south up to Yerushalayim? And keeping him quiet? When I got those angry stares from the people next door while the king was reading Mishnah Torah? But I brought the child because I have to do whatever I can to bring the child and let him see what it's like when Yidden are together in a Beis HaMikdash. Unless the Makatri come and say, big deal. You brought the child to the Beis HaMikdash, so what? He didn't understand anything anyway. And for the Elazar ben Azariah, this is why Rabbi Yeshua jumped. This is why he was so excited. Your response to that is, all I can do as a parent is to try to bring him to the right places, to expose him only to Kedusha. Afterwards, it's not in my hands. If I did what I could, because Baruch Hu guarantees my schar.
This shiur is distributed by Kolodas, 11 Stay Chemet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Postbox 57035.